Hello neighbors, it's Brad here at eTrailer, and today we're taking a look and installing the Curt Trailer Hitch Receiver on a 2018 Ford Edge. Now this is what your hitch is going to look like when it's installed, and it looks pretty good with its hidden cross tube. And that just simply means that all that you're going to see hanging down from the bottom of your vehicle is going to be the receiver tube opening as well as the safety chain loop. So on a sport model like we have here, it gives it a nice clean look and all the usability of a hitch. Now this is going to be a 2-inch by 2-inch receiver tube opening, which is a great size for a bunch of different accessories, whether it be a ball mount, a cargo carrier, or bike rack. It's really going to open up your world to what you can do with your vehicle. Now all of your accessories are going to need a 5/8 pin and clip to keep them in place. The hitch does not come with one. A lot of your accessories, when you pick those up, will have pin and clip included, but if you want a locking one, that way you can leave your accessories in, lock them in place, and know they're not going to disappear. We have plenty of options here available at eTrailer. Now if you plan on towing your trailer, you're going to be using the safety chain loops here, which are welded onto the side, and an S-style hook goes on no problem here, and even a larger clevis style hook will be able to work as well. Now if you do plan on towing, you're going to want to adhere to the weight capacities of the hitch, and they come in at pretty decent numbers. Your gross trailer weight rating, which is going to be the weight of the trailer plus the accessories loaded up, is coming in at 4,500 pounds. You also have a tongue weight rating of 675 pounds, and that's going to be the suspended weight that's put on the inside of the receiver tube opening. So if you have a cargo carrier bike rack, it's going to be able to hold up pretty well, especially with a high rating like that. Now it can be used with weight distribution hitches, but the numbers are going to stay exactly the same. You do want to refer to your owner's manual, make sure that the vehicle can actually tow those numbers, compare it with the hitch, take the lower of those numbers, and that way you're not overloading any of the components or the vehicle. Now it does sit a little bit recessed, especially with this kind of plastic rear diffuser here. And so from the center of the hitch pinhole to the furthest point of the rear fascia, we're looking at about 5 inches. And that's important for when choosing accessories that may fold, or even picking a ball mount that you may need to extend out a little bit to gain access to hook up to your trailer. Now also we're going to check our ground clearance here from the top of the receiver tube opening to the ground is coming in right at 12 inches. And that's important not only when choosing accessories to make sure they don't hang down too low, but also to choose if you need a rise or a drop for the trailer that you may be towing. Now something to keep in mind is some of your accessories that are suspended, cargo carriers, bike racks, things like that, as you go up an incline, they are going to kind of tilt towards the ground. So just keep that in mind when you go up a big incline. Now as far as installation goes, it's a pretty simple one. You do have to remove some panels as well as cut off one stud. It's a pretty tiny stud, so it's pretty easily done. And the rest of it is just putting hardware inside of the frame rails to allow your hitch to bolt up. So let's take a look at that and we can get your hitch installed. To begin our install, we're going to be removing 2 plastic panels. There's one on each side, and they're going to just kind of give us a little bit more space to be working underneath here. It does look like we have some 10mm nuts here that will take off, as well as some 5.5s that attach it to the outside edge of the rear fascia. There's also one more of those 10mm tucked right back here behind the exhaust isolator. So these 5.5s, there should be just 2 of these. Pull this out. You may have to kind of pull your fascia out of the way a little bit here. Now with those off, we're going to go to our rear fascia here, and there's a plastic panel that's attached with a series of 5.5mm screws. There should be 6 of them total, so this one's kind of inset and then you just work your way down. So we'll go ahead and get these removed. And we're also going to have some flange nuts. There's one in the center here. There's also 2 on the side. We're missing the 2 on the side for us, but it should be just a 10mm. So we'll go ahead, get this taken off. So you may kind of have to pry it a little bit here out of the rear fascia, and then we can set this aside. Next, we need to lower down our muffler, but we do want to make sure that we're supporting it, because once we take it off the isolators, it's going to be hanging down, and that can cause problems downstream, just because it's unsupported, it can damage the exhaust. So if you're doing this in your garage or in your driveway, I recommend throwing either a block of wood or something to kind of just support that. Since I'm on a lift here, I'm going to be using a cam buckle strap. Just kind of create a cradle here. Then we're going to go to the two isolators that are holding our muffler up. You're going to see that they're going to be on the outside. Now these can get a little bit tricky just because over time they kind of get built up and they don't really want to come off too well. So what I'm going to do here is just spray this down with some heavy duty silicone. You can use a soapy water solution, anything to kind of help glide it along here. And then we're going to be just prying this off. So using a pry bar, you can use a long flathead screwdriver here. And just kind of work at this, and you may need to move the muffler a little bit to kind of give you a little bit more room for it to pry out. We'll go ahead and do the same on the other side. So now right in the middle here where this actually where our flange nut went on that center plastic garnish, we're going to be cutting this off to make room for the hitch. I'm going to be using an oscillating tool. You can use a Dremel or anything to kind of just cut this down. So make sure you have safety glasses on and we'll get this cut off. Now that that's cut, we do have some exposed metal there. We don't want that turning into rust, so I'm just going to put a little bit of clear spray paint here, whatever color you have. Just go ahead and coat that up. It's just going to, again, make sure that that doesn't turn into rust. So now we're going to get ready to feed our carriage bolts as well as our spacer blocks into the frame. And the hitch is going to mount up. We're going to have two of those carriage bolts creating studs here as well as two on the side. So we're going to take this coiled end of the fish wire, and on the back side here there's a slot that's going to be large enough to feed our spacer blocks as well as our carriage bolts through, and our fish wire is going to get them to the destination they need to be. So in order to do that, I'm going to start here on this furthest side rail here, and I'm going to just feed my fish wire up until I can feel that coiled end down here. Now you may need to put some bends on it to find it. Sometimes it can be hidden in the frame. Once you get a hold of it, just pull that coiled end through. Now, once we kind of get this through, it can be tricky. If you need to, you can grab some needle nose pliers just to kind of pull it through. Just make sure this coiled portion doesn't get too bent out of shape. And what I'm going to do is this back where we fed it through, I'm going to just put a nice little bend here. That way it doesn't pull through. We don't want to lose the end of our pull wire. And then what we'll do is take our spacer block, and you can slide this over that coiled spot and throw it in the frame rail. And then we're just going to take our carriage bolt and thread it onto this portion. And now we'll come back to this section where we fed it in from originally and just pull this. You may need to kind of jostle it around a little bit, but we should be able to get our stud to poke through. So we're going to repeat the same process. We're going to be doing this other side one here, as well as the two holes that are right here. So with all four carriage bolts in place, we're going to go ahead and repeat the same process on the other side. Now what we're going to do is grab an extra set of hands to get our hitch in place, and we have our side bolts here, and we're going to just push these into the frame rail. We still have our fish wires hanging out, and we're going to raise this up in place, feeding the according fish wires to the holes that they go in. Now this center large hole is for the stud that's up here, so just make sure you're using the two smaller ones. And then we'll feed these side fish wires through as well. You may need to lift one side at a time, but once we kind of have that up, we'll take these fish wires, feed it through the hitch. And this is going to make it a lot easier to get the hitch in place, because once we lift this up, we'll be able to pull these bolts through and it's going to support itself. And all we really need is one of these to pull through just like that, and that's going to at least kind of support the hitch up in place. So make sure you have that done on both sides, and then it's going to hold itself. We can go ahead and grab our hardware. Now we'll just go ahead and get these hand tightened on. Now the flange nuts that we're using are going to be used for our side studs as well as this rear one. The front one's actually going to be using a split washer on the nut that's supplied in the kit, so just make sure that the one closest to this gusset on both sides is getting that split washer and nut. So we'll get them all hand tightened in place. Now we're going to go back and tighten these all down with a 3/4 inch socket. You don't have to get too crazy here, we just want it snugged up. We're going to come back with a torque wrench to make sure that they're properly torqued. Now I do recommend tightening the ones that are facing vertical first, that way it can kind of cinch up and then we can tighten those side ones. I'm coming back with a torque wrench and using the torque settings found in the instruction manual, we'll torque these all down. And if you need a torque wrench, we have these here at eTrailer. You can generally go to an auto parts store and rent one though. And this is just going to make sure that long term these are going to be tight enough for the lifespan of the hitch, but also it's not going to be too tight, putting stress on the threads. Now with all of our hardware tightened and torqued down, we can go ahead and get our exhaust isolators put back on. Now unfortunately, I tried to get our center panel here with our heat shield back in place, and I trimmed it out and gave it an honest attempt to make it work, but unfortunately the way that the hitch sits, we're no longer going to be able to use this. Now our side panels, those will go back up, so we'll get those attached, and then that's going to do it for the installation of the hitch. And that was a look and installation of the Curt Trailer Hitch Receiver on a 2018 Ford Edge.